So today I'm asking, or perhaps answering, what are emotions all about? What are they all about? What are our emotions all about? They are probably, I think, one of the most misunderstood aspects of being human. And that misunderstanding, I think, is a huge, huge cause of suffering for human beings. Because, well, like anything, when we misunderstand anything, it causes suffering, doesn't it? But our emotions are so fundamental to how we drive through life, how we navigate life. And when we don't understand them, we're left, I don't know, kind of flailing about, I think, with those misunderstandings. So let's kind of work through this in terms of how the human experience is created. What is an emotion? I mean, in its simplest form, I'm going to put my magic glasses on. Actually, I've just realised I haven't got them on. These are supposed to block out the blue light so that I so that I sleep better. Anyway, back to the subject. So first of all, emotions. When you feel emotion in your body, however that materializes for you, that is always an indication as to your state of mind. It's never an indication as to anything else. And I think the only time the times when we suffer in life is when we think that emotion is coming from something outside. Or often some sense of us being broken in some way, when we have bigger, what we might call bigger emotions, or emotions that don't seem to be passing. That is then pathologized, isn't it? Much of the time we give those things labels like anxiety and depression and all those other things. But what if that was all just a misunderstanding? Well, I really believe that it is, because actually when you're feeling an emotion in your body, that is a sign that there is energy moving. I often call emotions energy in motion. And that energy is connected to the energy of thought. So, a really simple example of that is if I start thinking really scary thoughts about the future, and invariably thoughts about how incompetent I'm going to be at managing that future when it comes. So I make up the future, and I make up a really quite incompetent version of me who can't handle that future. Then, of course, I start to feel that. So how might that materialise? Perhaps you've got a particular way that you see that materialise. Perhaps you feel, one of my clients used to call them angry butterflies, and I still often say that, those angry butterflies in your stomach, the stomach churning sort of feeling, the kind of fluttering that's more than fluttering. It's this kind of quite fast, hard sort of fluttering, thus the angry butterflies. Perhaps you feel something in your chest, like your heart beats a little faster. I mean, on a physiological level, what's really cool to see about that, because I love the science of all of this as well as the spirituality, it is that is a release of hormones, and that can't be done by the outside world. It can only be done, it's an internal system, that, isn't it? If you're feeling a sensation in your body, that is, not only is that spiritually we can talk about energy, but we can also very much see and test. I would have thought, I'm not going to do that test, but we could probably test to see, when we're feeling like that, what are the hormones that are buzzing around in our body? Adrenaline, probably cortisol. Don't ask me. I'm not like a medical expert on that, but that's what's going on, isn't it? So in the moment when we're caught up in some kind of thinking about something, our body sort of responds to that. Now, one of my favourite quotes is from David Bohm, who said, "Thought creates reality," and then says, "I didn't do that." And this is kind of the next phase of this, is that once the mind has created the reality of those emotions, it's all too easy to listen to the mind's solution to those feelings. You know, the mind says, "Oh, I know how to get rid of this emotion." All of this isn't like happening out loud. It's not. If it was that obvious, it'd probably be an awful lot easier to navigate it, wouldn't it? Because you'd be like, "Oh yeah, there's my mind again with its stories." But it all happens very fast, and it all happens very unconsciously. But there's a misinterpretation at some point. So there's an emotion in my body, and then there's an interpretation of that emotion and where it's coming from, and that often can be the outside world. So, for example, if it is that worrying thinking that brings about that feeling of angry butterflies and the heart pounding, and maybe the hands are shaking, knees might go like jelly, that's what sometimes happens to me, then it might seem like, oh, I need to manage the future, I need to try and stop that thing happening, or I need to avoid that thing in the future, or I need to make excessive plans for that to manage, to mitigate the potential problems that might come about from that. And the solutions that are presented at that point are coming from the same place that created the feeling in the first place. So one of my favourite little metaphors around this is like, you know, when your kids are little, or when you're looking after other people's little children, or you just happen to be with somebody's little children, you know, and even if you haven't done that, you can probably imagine this, that if you're painting with a 2-3-year-old, and let's say you go, "Oh, you know, I really need a wee, I'm going to have to go to the loo," and you say to the little child, "You stay there, don't move, just paint on the paper. You've got the plastic tablecloth on the table, it's all brilliantly set up. Paint on the paper." So, and then you walk away and go to the toilet. And you can imagine what you come back to. You come back to your beautiful white kitchen wall, which has now been finger painted beautifully, very artistically and creatively, by the small child. So there's now this paint on the walls, and there's paint probably on the furniture. It's everywhere. What would be inadvisable at that point would be to just give the 2-year-old a cloth and go, "Oh, a cloth, clean up that mess." Like, yes, we want children to take responsibility for the mess they've made, but that would be really silly, wouldn't it? To then give this child, who is enjoying making a mess on the wall, to clean up the mess. But that is what the mind is endeavouring to do all the time. So the mind's, you know, perhaps the mind, we might say the mind is aware that there's this emotional dysregulation in the body, it's not feeling good, and then the mind says, "Oh, it's okay, I know how to solve that." But there's almost like it's forgetting that the mind created that in the first place. That didn't come from anywhere else but the mind. And then the mind is saying, "I know how to solve that," because that's what the mind wants to do, doesn't it? Like, the mind is a problem-solving machine, interpreting and problem-solving machine. Like, that's what it's all about. And it's referencing at that moment, it's referencing perhaps definitely past experiences, solutions that made sense at some point in the past. Like, all of that is being referenced at that moment. And that's why those solutions tend to take us down a path that isn't the best for us, isn't healthy for us, isn't good for us. So a great example of that is, you know, reaching out for something unhealthy at a point at which you feel emotionally dysregulated, withdrawing from life to apparently escape those emotions. All those things that we do that we probably don't even realise most of the time is being driven by emotions, is all being kind of dictated by the mind, which says, you know, this is how to fix it. When it was created by the mind in the first place, remember, the toddler created the painty mess. Don't allow the toddler to clean up the painty mess. So what's kind of the alternative? And I talk about this so much, and that is to get into the body. How do we do that? You might think, well, I am in my body. You're probably not. You're probably mostly in your head. I think most of us are most of the time. But it is literally like the pausing. How often do we just pause and take a breath? And just like I can feel now, I've been speaking quite fast, and I can feel a little bit of a rushed up feeling in my body. I can just feel that. And I'm just now just feeling into it. It's there, it's here in my chest. It's a little bit up here, like between, like up towards my breastbone, like from my belly button, I suppose. Like it's just there, just a little bit rushed up. And I can describe it with that kind of neutral language. It's a bit rushed up, it feels a bit tight, like it's just very neutral and very non-confrontational and non-judgmental. Like, there's nothing wrong with any of what I'm experiencing right now. It's all perfect. It's all perfect exactly as it is. It's amazing when you see that. And what I notice at that point is, as we just observe and we almost like just name the sensations. Try to avoid the words that have some pathology attached to them, like anxiety, depression, etc. Avoid those words, because that is going to get the mind busying again. And just notice that. And as well, like, when I came into this world of the 3 principles and the inside out understanding, I heard people talk about psychological immune system, and I kind of got it on an intellectual level. But the invitation with this sitting with the feeling is to see in the moment, oh my goodness, there it is happening. There it is. I can see my psychological immune system. Like just then I could see, yes, there was this bit of tension and a bit of something coming up the middle of my body, and it never stayed still. It was moving. It's changing. It's gone now. It goes on its own. This whole emotional management thing that we're doing, and trust me, me too, all the time, is grounded in such a misunderstanding that you're not your emotions anyway. You're not your thoughts. You're none of that. But you can be the observer of that. You can be the observer of the thoughts, the observer of the emotions moving through. And that is, it's amazing. It's like really empowering to see, to connect to how your system is working like that. All day, every day, that's what it's doing. Which is just... it's just so cool to see. So the conclusion of this little chat really is pausing and being with your emotions and watching out for your mind that is going to try and solve, because that's what it does. That's what it's always trying to do, isn't it? Solve problems. Yeah, I'm a proper problem solver anyway. I feel like that's kind of one of my things I'm really good at, is solving problems. But perhaps a lot of the time we don't need to do that, and we're better off kind of being in our body. So I hope this has been helpful. It's actually been helpful for me to just talk it through like this. So yeah, let me know. Let me know if it's been helpful. Reach out if you want to talk about this further. Take care. Lots of love.